So good evening. Not good afternoon this week. Good evening. Just to set the scene for you, for those not watching this, but listening again, probably on the 7:26 train. It's a late Tuesday night. We have altered our schedules because we had a very special guest dial in from abroad. More on that later. So, just to start the pod by thanking Dan Taylor for our wonderful, wonderful new logo. Pete, what do you think?
I think it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. I love it. I'm going to have a tattoo done. I think that was Mark's idea.
Blissy, is that you? Is it?
I was going to say he's made a good decision by just kind of drawing someone and not telling us who it is. So that can just be an ongoing theme for the rest of the series. Which, yeah,
Brilliant.
Our thing. We all love it.
Good. And so we're also, it's a bit of an international pod, not only from our special guest, but from our special prop. Blissy, where are you in the world?
Oh, I'm in Warsaw, mate. It's marvellous out here, if only an hour ahead. But no, glad to be able to dial in, to be enabled by the various podfathers and tech whizzes that, of course, sit behind this fairly ramshackle occasion of a couple of blokes mindlessly chatting about rugby. And yeah, to come to you from the digital world, the future truly is now.
Indeed. So before we get into our special guest, we'll do, because it's been around a week and a half, I think, and there's been a few crackers of games of rugby. I thought it was worth just stopping on Wales, Australia, and then working out what that result means for Wales and for Australia. So, Pete, what was your sense of it, short term, long term?
Well, I watched the game. It was just quite amazing, and I'm nearly choking. But Wales were really very, very good. It's a difficult thing for an Englishman to say, obviously. I did 10 out of 10. Whatever they did, they played pressure rugby, put Australia under pressure, and they lost Dan Bigger in the first few minutes. Anscombe comes on, kicks the goals, emotions, and just gave them great field position, and they just choked Australia to death. It's a tremendous all-round performance. Very, very impressive.
So, Blissy, what was your take? Was it a battle of hearts in that Wales have found theirs? Thank you, Gatland, for creating it, and maybe the Aussies don't. Thank you, Eddie Jones, for removing it.
Yeah, as echoing what Pete said, nearly everything Wales did worked, nearly everything Australia didn't, especially from about kind of minute 25, 30 in the first half. But my one takeaway from this is that the Wales fan mindset of, I can't believe that everyone else can't see that we're the best team in the world because we are, has made a return since. And they've been it's not been there, I don't think, since the last World Cup, really. Or when Pivac made them pretty good for the One Six Nations, they were good. And that mindset is almost independent of Wales. You only really see it with Wales. The fact that it's back means two things. One, they're going to be really, really, really irritated, or really irritating until they're knocked out. And when they get knocked out, it's going to be hilarious. So those are my two takeaways. We're going to get peak, very, very entertaining, if annoying, Welsh fans until they get knocked out. I've already seen a tweet that says they're going to lose to France in the final. So I know it's all the way, and I have missed it in a way. It's glad to see them piping up again. I'm glad to see them piping up again.
Got it. And then what about the New Zealand Italy? Those 96 points that the Kiwis they got across over Italy. Pete, what was your sense of that?
New Zealand just seemed to have woken up. They were just overpowered. Italy everywhere on the pitch. They just dismantled them. a little piece at a time. And Italy, I don't know. I mean, did they have a really bad night? Well, yeah, I mean, they lost by 96 points to 17. But New Zealand just really were fantastic all over the park. I mean, totally overpowered them. It was so different from the France-New Zealand game that we saw on the opening night. They just got everything right. There were so few mistakes. Just, a real warning for everyone else that's left in that World Cup competition, I think.
Yeah, got it. And then I think the other pick of the games, the one that we're actually most looking forward to after speaking to Lasciani last week, was the Fiji-Georgia game. Like, Blissy, he's your pal. For those of you, tell us what happened to him and tell us a wee bit about the game.
Yeah, so a broken fibula and a partially dislocated knee for old Lasher there. So having just come back from trying to tackle Tani Tupo with his head, he's gotten it entirely wrong and instead tried to tackle someone with his lower body. So unfortunately, Lasciani still has not quite got tackling yet, but I'm sure he'll figure it out eventually. And he's gotten a fair amount of rehab to do to figure it out. God, yeah, kind of what a showcase from two teams that are desperately trying to essentially kind of crowbar their way into the tier one circuit. Like, I think kind of everyone was expecting Fiji to continue the momentum they built after beating Australia. Kind of maybe a few people kind of seen Georgia being really held up by the Portuguese and thinking that and obviously kind of taking their fair disappointing result against Australia in the opening weekend, thinking that was going to you're going to see Fiji kind of really cut loose and Georgia being left in the dust for a bit. But, it took Fiji until about kind of the 50th minute to score a point because the Georgians had figured out a game plan of how to slow their attack down better than anyone else in the tournament had managed so far, engineered some really interesting attacking opportunities for themselves, and just looked an incredibly difficult team to play. The physicality of it as well. Kind of two teams that really, really enjoy hitting you very hard. Some hits that you could hear from the clubhouses and pubs across the country here in that game. Fiji kind of obviously, coming away and converting the opportunities that they made in the end, but Georgia taking them the distance. I was sad to see my close personal friend and his nation fall valiantly on the field of battle.
Yeah. Well, it just so happens that not only did we speak to Lash last week, but this week we are going to speak to the referee of that game, Karl Dickson, and we've got Karl on the line just now. Karl, how are you doing?
Evening. I'm very well, thank you. I'm currently on a little island just outside Paris at a function with the fellow referees. So I popped out just to come and say hello.
Fantastic. Quiet night, I hope?
Very quiet for me. A few others might be having a few, but very quiet for me. Obviously got a big game on Friday.
Fantastic. So as you know, this pod goes out to the hundreds or so players, refs, kids, parents, and so on. And some of them may not know who you are, and you've got a really interesting history. Can you just go back through, just talk me through your journey from minis player to professional and then on to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. I probably had a very, as you say, interesting way I came into it. I didn't really start playing rugby till I was 12. And then I kind of played up till I was 18. And then when I got to 18, I stopped playing while I was at university because I just kind of got into the university life and started playing a bit more football. And then when I started doing a PGC, I actually went to Bedford Uni and decided that I'd love to give rugby another go. And I was very fortunate that the Bedford gave me that opportunity. So I was there for 4.5 years at Bedford. Then I joined Quins. I was at Quins for 8 years. Dino signed me. And as he signed me, got kind of kicked off due to obviously Bloodgate. So that was obviously interesting. And then literally at 34, I had the option of carrying on playing for Quins or joining the RFU as a referee. And that's when I took the opportunity to become a referee.
Awesome. And I've seen you've done some commentary around how difficult that transition can be from players when they suddenly just stop playing. Was that something that, did you know it was coming and you hedged against it by jumping into refereeing? How did you come about it?
I kind of knew probably like 2.5 years before, I started doing my referee bits while I was still playing. And you just realize that you're taking a lot more knocks and it's taking a little bit longer to recover from it. So I knew I had to think about stuff after rugby. I didn't know it was going to be refereeing at the time, but I was very fortunate that, it kind of worked out for me. And then it was a real simple decision in the fact that, I probably could have done maybe 2 more 3 years playing at that level. And then what? And referee gave me a great opportunity to stay in the game that I loved and that longevity.
Which teams would you say have you found the easiest to referee and be dominant and be good? Because everything they do just seems to be so kind of crisp and clear and easy for you to just kind of let roll. And which teams do you find so hard because they present you? And I think kind of this goes for Ireland, South Africa a bit more with kind of so many 50-50 calls because they've kind of interpreted the laws a certain way. They've created a strategy and then they've pushed that to the absolute limit. Like, what are the teams that you essentially kind of really look forward to refereeing because they're great and really don't like refereeing because they're great?
I think that's quite an interesting question around, like, you watch this Africa-Ireland game and we want a game which flows, obviously, which without taking the laws away from it. But if you blew a penalty every time you saw an infringement, you'd probably have no game according to what the law says. So we're looking to get a game, and sometimes it's 1 or 2 seconds, ball's available, let's move on. And you can kind of manage that around how you talk to players. In terms of teams, I've done games where you go into a game and you've got someone like New Zealand, Australia, where you're like, wow, these are 2 teams who love to play. And then actually on the day that it doesn't kind of work out like that. So you're actually refereeing a little bit more and a little bit harder. You only have to take this weekend, for example, I did Fiji, Georgia. We expected Fiji to pass the ball around, throw it around loads, and they couldn't do it because the Georgians defended so well. So that free-flowing game you're looking to suddenly becomes more of a sort of breakdown contest and slows down the ball and makes it a bit more of a tactical game. So in terms of who do you prefer to referee and who's hardest, who's easiest, the easiest games are the games where we don't have to get involved too much. Now, team-wise, that could be any team on their day. And then the hardest games are ones where it is an attritional more competition. Potentially the weather has that impact on the game and it's a slower game, more scrums, a more competitive breakdown, because in those conditions, teams are so good now that as soon as that ball's lifted from an iron and passed out, teams are off the line, putting pressure on players. So to answer your question, it's very difficult in the fact that I couldn't pick a team that I find the worst or the hardest. It's more about you kind of adapt to that game. You see how that game plays out within the first sort of 10 minutes and you kind of go, right, okay, this is a game that's going to happen today.
Fair enough. And then if I could jump in with one more question. Like kind of referees at our level, it's just literally kind of them and what they see. And yeah, kind of out there by themselves. And then kind of when you get to literally the international highest level as you're currently at, you've got the 2 linos, you've got the VR system, you've got the TMO, you kind of have a ton of support, but obviously kind of the game itself is happening at such an astronomically faster speed. It's so much more difficult to referee, and there's so much more going on. You need that support. So kind of going back to kind of what Meg was saying about the transitional phase, what do you think is kind of when you're moving your way up through the ranks, where do you encounter or where did you encounter kind of the biggest jump? Are you like, oh, like, God, I need a certain amount of time to adapt to this? Where was the biggest kind of gap in the transition phase?
So I think there's probably 2 or 3 little transitions which kind of make it different. As you say, at your level, you don't have an AR. So as a referee, you're just making decisions by yourself. And I can tell you right now, like, if you get 2 teams who are very competitive at breakdown, it's very difficult to manage other areas like offsides and things like that. So you're going to miss quite a bit of that stuff. So that's the kind of, as a sole person, you're kind of almost, well, this is on me just to see what I can see, and I'm going to miss loads. I'm going to miss a lot, and that's for you players to probably understand that people on the sideline offside and this and offside that, or you've missed that. Well, there's only one set of eyes. When you move up to a situation where you have ARs, well, then suddenly you've got three pairs of eyes looking at a game, and hopefully you'll get a few more things. You'll probably get a more structured game, a better sort of tactical game from teams because they actually know that people are watching and they're not going to get us away much. And then you go to the next stage, which is obviously where you have a TMO. And then the game changes even more where you're still trying to make those live decisions as a three on the field, knowing that you have like a guy up in the sky kind of sweeping behind you. What we don't want to do is almost not make decisions and think, well, we'll just stick everything on the TMO because that's unfair on that guy to do that. We're on the pitch to referee and make a decision. And that guy's there to sort of almost sweep in the background and help us where we've missed something really clear. But they're probably the three sort of transitions, and probably at your level as a referee, probably should get a little bit more slack since there's only one guy watching 30 players, and you can never see everything. And I know from when I first came through, for example, someone's got it from a scrum. I could probably put money on he's hit him, but I've not seen it because I'm looking at something else, and therefore I can't say anything because I've only got one set of eyes. Whereas if you had three set of eyes on that, you might have got a different outcome. So they're probably the biggest transitions in terms of team. For me, as a player turned referee, it's more the fact that I really struggled at the start. Almost, I refereed as a player. I was like, oh, that's fine, we'll play on. Oh, that's fine, we'll play on. Whereas you have to get that balance between using your referee law knowledge and the player rugby understanding, which sometimes you're kind of handcuffed in a way where you've just got to go with the law.
I like it. Just before I hand over to Pete, I'm really interested, Karl, in hearing a bit more about what the World Cup is like in your eyes. Like, what does obviously, I think you're refereeing every week, give or take, I'm guessing, or have been as well, right? So, what goes on in the days where you're not refereeing? Because I think a lot of people would love to hear, like, are you going out and doing stuff in the community, or are you going out and improving how you all make decisions? Or are you speaking to the teams that you're about to referee? Give us a sense of what the weeks are looking like.
So at the World Cup right at the moment, particularly in the group stages, which is pretty busy. So, for example, this weekend, I travelled down to Bordeaux on the Friday. I refereed Saturday. I was back on the train up to Paris on Sunday, reviewing my game. On the Monday, we had all group training session as a team, and with other referees travelling from different venues. So we have our group training session. Then we have our review meetings with our selection group. So that's on a Monday. Then on a Tuesday, we have a full team meeting. So all the referees, TMOs, AR, selection group, and go through themes from the weekend and how we can improve, which areas weren't probably as good as we wanted them to be. Then we have a running session as a group on a Tuesday. Wednesday is normally your day off, but in the group stages, some people are traveling Tuesday nights, Wednesday mornings for games, Wednesday nights, Thursdays. So, for example, I'm traveling on Thursday down to Lyon for the game Friday. So the weeks are really busy at the moment with all that sort of stuff. So it's not like we just do the game, sort of close the laptop after the game and go, thanks very much, that's me done for a week. We're prepping, we're reviewing, we're discussing as our team of four areas we need to think about for the weekend coming up. So in the group stage, you don't really get too much time off. Wednesdays is normally our time to sort of relax and switch off. And normally that's, for some of us, it's our golf day. So
nice. Brilliant. Thanks, Karl. Pete?
Yeah, I don't know if you got the first question about the yellow to red and the benefits of the bunker system.
So I'll go into the bunk. Yeah, the bunker system. Yeah, as I said, so from a referee's point of view, I think it's really beneficial in taking a bit of that time and pressure away from you. You see nowadays when something goes up on the screen, no matter what it is, the crowd have a massive influence on the noise they make towards certain instances, and also we don't want to, people at home, kids, don't want to see, and parents don't want to see people getting smashed in the head in slow motion 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So what we obviously designed a system where we establish if it's foul play, and then we establish if it needs to meet the yellow card threshold, and if it does meet that threshold, we send it to an off-site bunker system where they will review it with Hawkeye, which has 20 odd cameras and different angles and stuff. So they have the time and space to make a formal decision, which without crowd noise, without that pressure, and then it comes back to us for us to give the decision. Now, is that going to work 100% of the time? Of course not, because humans see different things, and our sport's black and white and grey, and everything high level, medium level. People see different things, so it's never going to work 100% of the time. But what we hope is, we're getting pretty much. There might be an anomaly out there, but we're getting most of the decisions right, and people can follow why we're doing it and what we're doing it. And as a referee, it makes that time and space and that pressure sort of system a little bit easier.
Okay. Karl, just one thing: do you think we will see a straight red during the World Cup?
I honestly don't think you will. The only way I think you'll see a red card in today's game is if you get the old school sort of punch or someone stamping on someone's head, which I don't think will really happen. But we don't want to give straight reds, not because we, as we've probably read a few times, that we're bottling the decision. We have 2 replays to see a decision, and sometimes you miss things. So, like, for example, take a contest in the air. If someone takes a contest in the air and you get 2 angles and someone lands on their head dangerously, we all know as referees that's probably going to be a red card. But what we don't know is if there's been a budge on the way through, or a player's been knocked, and that's created a mitigating factor or situation which was uncontrollable by the player running into that situation. So for us to give a straight red, and then suddenly 5 minutes later there's an angle showing that the player's been knocked off balance, and that's caused it, I think it'd be a real shame. So this system works really well because they have that time and space to get all the angles, get the whole picture. Whereas for us in two sort of looks at it, we don't get that. All we want to establish is, do we have foul play, and does it meet that yellow card threshold?
Yeah.
Got it. So I could talk to you all night, but Karl, you've got to go and get a glass of wine down here, I'm sure. I'm going to finish with one question, very, very short, and would love a very short answer from you as well. Everyone wants to play in a final, and I presume that everyone wants to referee the final as well. Like, do you have in your mind what needs to happen for you to go and get to the final yourself? Are you thinking about that at all?
No, I'm very realistic in what this is my first World Cup that I've been to. The guys there have done 5 World Cups. So first World Cup as a referee, but 5 World Cups. People have done 4 World Cups, and some really experienced guys in there. So I think I'd be really naive to think that I was going to get a final. For me, the biggest achievement is being here as a referee and going out and refereeing 4 games at a World Cup. And if you move on into the knockout stages, that's great. But if you don't, then you've achieved everything you can as a referee, and as a player, all they want to do is be at a World Cup and play. So you take it in your stride. What will come. But I could pretty much put my mortgage on it that I will not be refereeing the Rugby World Cup final.
I'll hold you to that. And if you get it wrong, then we'll certainly buy you a beer at the bar up at Cobham when we see you next. Karl, sincere thanks. I know you've squeezed us in between speeches. That is very good of you. So from everyone at the COB Pod, sincere thanks.
Thanks, Karl.
Pleasure, guys. Cheers. Thanks for having me on. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Should we look into the Cobham review? That needs some sort of sting and some graphics, doesn't it? Cobham review, right? So Cob review. Ones were away to Beckenham. A narrow loss. Go on, Blissy. You're a man of the ground in the front row.
Yes, painful. Top of the league, unbeaten at theirs, big crowd. Came up just painfully short. Went into the sheds ahead just at the half. And fair play to Beckenham. Came out in the second half with the wind at their backs. kicked us to death, held us in our own 22, got more points on the board than we did. Yeah, unfortunate to come away with a point for the log, but alas, that's rugby. So yeah, I got to quickly mention a few unfortunate lads, Wesley, Edmo, and our dear vulnerable Luke Flower, who all picked up injuries, unfortunately, some a bit more serious than others. And of course, our very capable medical team, Sarah, the physio, and Murph, the ambulance driver, who managed to get Luke to the hospital for him to kind of groan at them rather than all of us in the changing room. And yeah, we'll be back, and we look forward to seeing Beckenham at ours later on in the season.
We shall be back. And then, Pete, I saw you at the Twos game. You were watching.
Oh, yeah.
You had a delicious cold drink in your hand as I was jogging around. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, a great win, actually. A fantastic game of rugby. 38-25 against Weybridge Vandals. And again, 14 people from the minis and youth in the first team and 13 in that second. And a few older people, Mick, obviously. I think you got on for the second half, didn't you? Yeah. Really great entertainment. It was great to watch, really good to see. A quick shout out to Reese. Hope you recover soon, mate. Got a ruptured Achilles and full marks to Dave Silver again, straight on the pitch, knew the problem, sorted it out. I know he had a long wait in A&E, but the care on the pitch could not have been better at the Premiership Club or at the World Cup. Full marks. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was top, and thanks again to the Twos for letting some of the older contingent have a bit of a run out. It was a bit of a game of two halves, by the way. I think the first half was, it was pretty plain sailing against Vandals. And then Walshy made 8 or 9 changes at halftime. And funny little thing, they kind of crept back into it slightly. But loved every minute. And only today am I now walking without a limp. So fantastic. And then into the minis.
I think just in time for Friday, Mick. Yeah.
Correct. I think the minis, so I think 7s, 8s, 10s, 11s were a big Wimbledon festival. Shout out to the 7s, their first ever festival. I remember those. I remember as a coach taking the kids to their first festival, and it's an absolute explosion for them. So well done, gang.
I thought you were going to say you remember going as a player, and I was like, no, you don't.
Get away. I might do. Not that old, mate. Not that old. And then what about under 13 boys? So, do you know, I've got a name of some of the old boys here. So to Alex, Terry, Reese Williams, and I think the pod father himself, Ian Sneed, who dished out some scrummaging practices in the week before. It obviously paid off because I've been hearing great things under 13, so well done. And then under 12 girls, we're at Dorking, and we've got, the first time they played 5-person scrums. You must remember that one, Blissy, surely. But a shout out to Ava Brown.
Those are back in the days when I watched them and didn't actually take part. And then something happened.
Something happened involving your voice.
Yeah.
So we've got some shout outs for Ava Brown. Ava Brown and Indy Harrison. Well, I've got here that for Indy Harrison on our try-saving tackle on the wing. Love to see it and love to hear it. There's another thing that I looked at recently, and our good pal Def Alex took some of the Cobham girls to the Red Roses played Canada yesterday. Have you guys heard about this? The WXV event that's effectively
the new 3-tiered women's international competition that our Red Roses have been tearing up in. Really heard that Canada gave them a hell of a game and that we benefited from a red card fairly early on. But no, kind of the Red Rose machine grinds on. Other than they've been looking fairly unmatched on that circuit for everything other than a World Cup final, unfortunately.
Got it. how long is that? Do you know how long the comp's on for? Is it one of these perpetual comps that's going to take months and months and months to roll through?
I don't know because it's three-tiered, I believe. Obviously, there's teams interchange, and there's about 8 teams in each tier. There's England, Wales, USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, or might be 6. I'm unsure. No, France and Scotland are tier 1, I believe.
I think Scotland are tier
8.
2. I think I read it. I read it this morning.
Yeah. And there's interchange. So, and because it's global, I think kind of, yeah, you'll get a round of, I'm not sure if all 8 teams play all 8 and how it works, who wins in the end. Should really do some more research into it. But yeah, kind of, I mean, the main thing I've heard about it is the fact that it didn't manage to get on terrestrial television. They had to stick with YouTube live streams, which obviously caused a bit of an uproar and didn't really seem to make a great deal of sense because, I mean, to be honest, the fastest demographic that's getting involved in rugby, but head and shoulders, are women and girls. So kind of any kind of investment on that side of things, you think would, as they saw in the Six Nations just gone in the Women's Rugby World Cup before that, you saw huge numbers being pulled in. So yeah, a few questions that need answering there, but we'll roll on.
Got it. Class. All right, so we're going to move on to the COB Pod inbox. We've had loads, by the way. We've had loads of good stuff. And we did say, I think we said last week that there were going to be prizes for those submitting. And we've pulled out from a very large mailbag a letter from a Mr. Tom Cowan, who's got some questions. Like, Tom, you're going to get some stash sent to you. So some of the World Cup, as displayed on the screen if you're watching, some of the World Cup training tops that I see some of the players doing in the warm-ups and stuff. So TC, that's coming your way for some of the questions around 4G pitches. Are they going to stick or twist with 4G? I'll tell you right now, I played in that 4G pitch on Saturday, and I still have weeping burns from playing on it. Like I don't quite understand why we're doing it, but that's just me. And we're going to attack that question maybe later on after a bit of research, TC, if that's okay. You also ask, let's have a talk about Italy being involved in the Six Nations. I would say, shall we pause that question until after the France game? And then some other stuff. Right, but how about this, guys? How about a wee quiz? You ready? A bit of a lightning quiz. So 5 questions. 5 questions. Just chuck me your answers. It will go Pete, then Blissy for each one. So far in the Rugby World Cup, how many points has the highest scorer got, Pete?
96.
Say again?
96. New Zealand?
Sorry, individual.
Oh, I thought you meant team. Bowden Barrett, I'm guessing.
Just give me the points, mate. Give me the points.
34.
34. Blissy.
Reckon George Ford is still pretty up there, so I'm going to say 43. George Ford.
43. Blissy takes it. It's 45. Held jointly by 2 people. Who might be?
George Ford's one. It's got to be.
It is not George Ford.
What?
The right position.
Sorry. So is it 2 fly halves?
It is.
26.
I would have said Gordon Darcy after this weekend.
Sexton, Pete, you get a point, 1 apiece. I'll give it. The other one was Donaldson. Just to move this along. Right, Fiji win over the Wallabies was the first time since what year?
Say again, mate. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
The Fiji win over the Wallabies was the first time since what year?
Wasn't it like the 1950s or something?
20.
Give me. So you're going 1920, Pete. You're going 1950s. Blissy, 1954.
Yeah.
1954. Woo! Which team, so how many tries has the highest try scoring team scored so far? Pete?
26.
26 from Pete. That's it.
I reckon with their win over Namibia and Italy, New Zealand have cracked 30 tries. Ooh, no. Yes, I reckon they have cracked over 30 tries.
You're going for 30 plus. The answer is 26, but it is New Zealand. That's a point for Pete. Guys, it's two apiece. It's two apiece here. This is the final one then. So the most number of tackles, please, by a team. How many tackles so far this World Cup?
Oh, it's Wales, and they're ahead by loads. I think they're on like 500 and something, and the second's like South Africa with 300 and something.
Give me a number, please.
523.
Pete.
South Africa, 280.
280?
Yeah.
The answer is 527, Blissy. You're 4 off, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But it is
Twitter's
not.
timeline is, the algorithm is perfectly accustomed to me at this stage. Useless information that I can regurgitate on the podcast.
But it was chilly, by the way. Chilly, it says here.
Really?
With my handwritten notes. Yeah. Highest number of tackles. So there we go.
Good for them.
All right. So let's look forward. We've got the Vets playing slight switch of team. I think we were going to be playing Vandals. Couldn't raise a team. So now we're going to switch and play London Irish on Friday, which will be brilliant. Please come along for what is undoubtedly one of the best pints inside the M25. We've got Scotland, Ireland, England, Samoa, France, Italy. Any picks of the bunch there, chaps?
Yeah, I think the top pick for me is Ireland, Scotland. That's one of those sides either could go home, depending on the result. And it's so complicated, it's unbelievable.
Well, in a game between two teams, 3 teams could potentially go home. You've seen over the course of the day, the South Africans getting their tinfoil hats out and getting quite jumpy about whether or not there's going to be some sort of agreement between Ireland and Scotland to send them home.
Yeah.
Which...
And Fiji need one bonus point from their game against Portugal. Now that, on paper sounds easy, but then they struggled against Georgia. So who knows? And then Japan, Argentina. That's another deciding game. And then
that's the one that's going to fly under the radar as being one of the more entertaining games. It's another straight winning in. No, England have already got through, so there's nothing kind of outside it. It's literally just going to be 80 minutes of 2 teams deciding which one of them is going to go home. So yeah, hell of a game there.
I like it. France, Italy, we talked about. Why is everyone going on about France, Italy so much?
Well, Italy is still it's still possible, I think, for them to go to the quarterfinals. France obviously want to top the group, which if they lose to Italy, they can potentially still not do because New Zealand's points difference is so massive now. So yeah, there's a few dynamics, and plus it's just France, Italy. They have quite the rivalry, and so yeah, it's going to be emotional. It's going to be very European and emotional. Got it.
One last wee date for all of your diaries is one of my most favourite events of the autumn, which is the Spooktacular up at the Rugby Club, 27th of October. I remember having to try and make this work as an under 7s coach, doing the spooky trail and stuff, scaring the absolute bejesus out of a bunch of kids. Brilliant time. You usually have to pre-book, don't you? Because it gets very, very, very busy. Well worth just sticking it in your diary and having a look at the COB website and seeing how you can book a ticket. If not, you can see the wee flyer on your screen right now, which is Bonza. All right, Pete, some shout-outs, please, from you.
Some shout-outs. First of all, I'd just like to mention the Gordon Navati Volunteer of the Year Award. First year we've awarded it. So a shout-out to the nominees, Matt Pettican, Rachel Pugh, Chris Hamilton and Ian Houston, who all took a bottle of champagne home. And the winner was Kate Curtis, who got a bottle of champagne and a great big hamper full of Silent Pool gin. Lovely. Very nice.
Awesome.
I try not to drink it. She was in Canada, so she hasn't got the prize yet. Other shout outs, Dan Taylor, really thank you so much for that fantastic piece of artwork. And just to mention again, our sponsors, Savills Estate Agents, Russell Cook Solicitors, SPL Villas, and Matty Woods Director Management. Fantastic. Thanks for all the money you put into the club.
Fantastic.
As well, with heading back to our close personal friend Dan Taylor, there is currently a 20% discount if you order through his website for any particular funny or what do you say, aesthetically pleasing sketches of a close friend.
Fantastic, lads. Thanks very much. So keep your emails, keep your thousands of letters flying into the address cobpod@gmail.com. There is yet more stash up for grabs. We'll continue to look and ask for guests from around the globe to come and impart their knowledge from the world of rugby, high performance sports, refereeing, medicine. Keep an eye out for that. But I think that's it for this week. So, Pete, Blissy, thank you very much. Producer Mark Marie Productions, thank you very much indeed. Podfather Sneed, wherever you guys are, I can't see you. I know you are there somewhere, but thanks for pulling it all together. And it was great that we were all able to get Karl on to tell us a bit about what is going on over in Paris from the referee's perspective.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks all.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.